We're always excited to talk more about risk management and safe programming for our 4-Hers. So be sure to add any questions you have in the chat box as we go. We have muted people as you came in, like you've noticed. But if you have questions and you want to ask them out loud, just let us know and we can unmute you and get that figured out too. So
we may want to check in just to make sure people can hear at this time.
There are a few people who have not yet connected their audio. So do make sure that you go to the Quick Start tab, and Kim's going to take this in for everybody too, and click on Audio Conference so that you can get connected and hear us. Aha, there we go. Got a few more. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's good because if you can't hear, it doesn't work.
That's right.
So we just want to talk a little bit about 4-H risk management and policies in general today, point out where they live on our current website, and give you an idea of what things have been updated recently or we're considering reviewing, that kind of thing. And then we're going to dive in a little bit later into some specific policies that are always important for us to review every year. And as always, there's space for questions. So please make sure that you're jumping in whenever you have a question. Okay, so thank you, Kim, for answering questions as we go. Sure. So first thing is just a reminder that all of our 4-H policies live within inside of cooperative extension policies. So like Kim mentioned, this is one of a series of risk management opportunities for you, so be sure to check out the other resources that exist around this idea, especially our favorite form code 1501 and volunteer involvement policies. I don't remember numbers well, but that one I got. And then
you remember everything well.
So we have also we try to integrate our policies into the national focus and make sure that we're following along their guidance too. So NEFA has a revised website and lots of great resources on there too. So make sure you check those out. And then navigating our website is still a very exciting adventure for anyone who tackles that one. And I just want to show you briefly where you can find the bulk of our policies right now. So I'm going to share my internet with you guys. So you can see this is the staff side of our 4-H website, so staff site. And most of the policies are either here on the enrollment page. This is where Adam has all those great resources for 4-H Online, and also our reporting procedures live here. So we update these every year for how we define a project and what does it mean to be a 4-H member and how do we talk about our story. All of that stuff lives here. And then we also have a risk management page, which gets updated on a regular basis when new policies come up. So like the woodworking and engineering guidelines are the newest hot off the presses risk management guidelines for you. And then other resources here. And this page too will link you back to like Kim's part of CC admin and those parts too, or the animal science website and their policies. So you can check that one out. The Cloverbud Animal Science policy has been updated recently too, so that's a new one that you can check out if you have animal science projects. And then I feel like there's one more spot that I wanted to show everybody. I can't remember now. So I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my list. Oh, we are, you can ignore this policies link for now. Some of those policies are also on this part of the website, but now that we have a new website that will hopefully be ready to launch soon, we're going to have a section that will be dedicated to policies to try to make it a little bit easier to find. But as always, just drop any of us in the state office a line. Adam especially, it really knows where all this stuff lives. So just so you know kind of how we update policies and procedures and those kinds of risk management things, Generally speaking, we try to keep an eye on the big policies that last year after year and just update them, like the reporting procedures. And
Fine, on the screen.
yeah, yeah. I just got distracted, sorry y'all. Okay. And then other policies get updated when we have questions and concerns. So for example, the woodworking and engineering guidelines, I got a bunch of questions from people about who can use what kind of tool, or I want to do this kind of robotics project and can that work? So we try to clarify that a little bit by setting up these guidelines. So if you have particular needs in your county, be sure to tell us so that we can see if that's something that needs to be clarified through a policy or how to best help you. And then anybody who was at the spring in-service this past April might remember we talked a lot about how great it would be if we spent some time reviewing the club management handbook in general and just looking at that big picture tool. So that is something that the club management committee is looking at doing too. All right, so we're passing the ball to you now, Adam?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, so the Managing Risks of Summer webinar is coming up, and this is a number I don't remember, Kim. That's the new one that's
May 25th.
Thank you. So that's also an excellent webinar for you to join in on and learn a little bit more about specific updates and policies for fair and working with animals and those kinds of things. So please be sure to join into that one. And always, it's a great idea to review the approved activities list that's in the form code. I try to make a habit of checking that out at least quarterly because it's always hard to know when things are getting updated, and it's just good to take a minute and double check and see if there's anything new going on there. So we have a lot of state events that have happened, like STAR and Capital Days, and that are coming up soon, career expirations. I hope I get to see everybody there. So chaperoning is a big part of that. So this is an important policy for everyone to review. Chaperones need to be at least 21 years old if they're going to have sole responsibility for youth, and they need to be background checked. So please make sure that is done for all chaperones. The safety of our young people is our highest priority, so we are very cautious when it comes to that kind of idea. The way the policy is written now, we do ask that if you're bringing a delegation or a group that has both male and female youth, that they have chaperones that are male and female too. And this is a particularly interesting part of the policy to about right now, especially since we're learning more and more about gender identity and, you know, how this plays out for young people and positive youth development. But what we try to do in general at every event is to have a wide range of gender identities, you know, people participating so that there are young people who feel comfortable with their chaperones, which is the most important thing. This matters more in places like State Fair, where the dorms are gendered. And stay tuned for how that shapes, because as we learn, we change our policies.
And just to note that we know it's not always possible to find this. In career explorations, if you let us know ahead of time, we can try to find a chaperone of the same gender from another county. What we do is we bring those counties near each other, and that way we have coverage, because we know that sometimes male chaperones are harder to find.
Yeah, and it's a little less of an issue in a place like career explorations where everybody stays in individual dorms, because we do tend to have the mix we need overall at the event. So that's the most important thing. And like Adam is saying, sharing between counties is really important. It's a good strategy for all of us to try to do. So if you can plan with your neighboring group, I know there's a district that's renting a bus together and all 3 counties are coming up together and planning their trip together. Those kinds of things can really help with the logistics of any sort of traveling, especially when you're thinking about traveling more than 100 miles when you have to have 2 approved drivers per vehicle anyway. And then just a reminder that all of our youth and adults who are part of our 4-H programs are expected to live up to our code of conduct, all of our cooperative extension and other policies, and the event guidelines.
Do you want to break away and show them where that is?
Sure, we can do that. Let me go back to.
So we wrote the code of conduct last year. We updated it and we put it on our website. And it's a good idea to know where this lives. So we'll share that with you now.
Yeah. So that is on. Oh, you know, I always go to the wrong spot. I was on the wrong spot already. Go back. It's on the risk management page right here on the top. So there's a state form and there's a form that you can use for your counties. So one thing to keep in mind when it comes to these kind of policies, because of the structure of our organization, because we have a campus part of cooperative extension and we have county parts of cooperative extension, we can't just write one form and one policy and say that this applies to both situations. So what we do is we write one form or policy that works for the state and Cornell version of things, and then we hope that you use that model for your own policies and that your local boards and decision-making bodies will adopt that same policy. It's not true for every policy, but in general, that's true. So we have posted here for your use a Word version of the Code of Conduct and the permission book if you did want to do that at the local level. The other thing to keep in mind about this Code of Conduct and permission slip is that it is, for the state level, it's good for the whole year. So if you have somebody who joins in October and you know they're going to want to come to state events, you can have them fill out that form as part of their enrollment process. Or if you have somebody who comes to STAR and then afterwards they have such a great time they want to go to state fair, you know, they don't have to fill that out again. They've already got that paperwork done. So we are trying to streamline that for you a little bit.
Should I go ahead and show them where to upload this?
Yeah. So
I'm getting a lot. This is Adam. I'm getting a lot of questions of where to upload these forms in 4-H Online. Alexa's going to pass the ball over to me, and I'll share that with you.
Yeah, so the other thing we tried to do to streamline our process is to go digital. So part of event check-ins in the past used to be collecting paper forms, and that takes a lot of time, especially at career explorations when you have 300 people at the same time all trying to check in. So if we all can spend a few minutes ahead of time at the local level and upload these forms into 4-H Online, then it saves us a lot of bustle when it comes to the beginning of the event.
And you don't see this?
Not yet, but it looks like it's coming.
Okay.
Yep, we're in.
Do you see 4-H Online?
I see what you're seeing up there on the screen.
This?
Oh, it went away.
This is what I want to share.
I cannot
It's not
see it.
showing at the moment. It was.
Yeah. You can go to application and then Google Chrome, it should pop up. Now something is happening. Now I see it. And you just have to.
You see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is your home screen of 4-H Online. And if you simply go to search and you find the member that's attending an event, you can simply log into their screen. In the case of I'm logging into 4-H with one additional information. These are all upload files where you can select a PDF or a image file. That's the photo release, the acknowledgement of risk. And for our state events, we have the state event permission slip upload and the state event code of conduct. And these are what Alexa was talking about. If you fill out one of these, it's good for all our state events. It's not the case with every event. The state fair has a separate dorm form, but these are our general code of conduct and permission slips that I've been getting questions about.
Thank you, Adam.
Are there any questions on that? I'll pass it back to you.
Okay.
Question from before.
Yeah, so there is a question in the chat I just want to mention out loud. Somebody had asked, well, there's a couple questions. One is, does PW Wood have to review any of our forms if you want to use them at the county level? And that's a great question. And the answer is no. So anytime we are doing a new policy, the woodworking guidelines, the code of conduct, anything like that, we work with both Jamie and Sarah, so both PW Wood and CCE administration, so that the policy works at both levels. So you don't have to do that. It's already been approved in both places. So you're good to go as far as that goes. And then there was another question about if chaperones of both genders are needed for day-only programs and multi-day programs. And make sure I don't say this incorrectly, but it's my understanding that the chaperoning is for the multi-day trip kind of program is when we look at that kind of thing, not for a one-day program.
Right, overnight.
Yes, it's only when we're thinking about overnight that we worry about that. Perfect, thank you. Excellent, so let's see what we have next. All right, now this one's definitely you, Adam.
So a few years ago, we lost our national group exemption on 4-H as a body. The group exemption number, I think, was 3704. So today, the cooperative extension offices serve as an umbrella. So 4-H clubs and their financial matters are activities of your association. So what that means is that they're activities of the association, the associations are liable for. So if a club does some nefarious activity and it comes out in an audit, it falls back on the association. So that's why it's so important to do an audit of your club's activities to discourage them from having large treasuries where they can use the money to go on a ski trip or something that's non-educational. I get a lot of questions on income taxes, and the way the tax exemption works for 4-H clubs is that if a donor makes a donation to a 4-H club, they can write it off on their income taxes. 4-H clubs should not use the tax exempt number for your association. If they're doing a large fundraiser, then it's fine for the association to use that number to purchase items tax exempt because they're indeed tax exempt, but we don't want individuals out at Lowe's or Home Depot using an association tax exempt number. Sales taxes are a little tricky with clubs. In most cases, they don't collect sales taxes, and this is all in the financial guidelines and in the form codes. But in specific instances, you can always ask me about in which cases you should collect sales taxes. An affiliate is a little different from a 4-H club. I like to define an affiliate as all adults, whereas a club is a youth-led organization. But an affiliate, to use the Clover and to be tax exempt, they need a memorandum of understanding signed with your association. Can you switch it to the next slide?
Sure.
In a lot of cases, we discourage club bank accounts. There's some cases where this is inappropriate, like a large horse club that does a big tax sale or something. They may need a bank account. If they do have a bank account, someone from the association should be a signer on that account. What that means is if there's a fallout with the club leader on that account, that the association always has control and can take over the account. To have an account, a club needs an EIN, and that's a little SS4 form that's sent into the IRS. We discourage large bank balances. There's a risk of nefarious activity with big balances over $2,500. And in a case where a club has a large account, it really should be just an association account. We discourage clubs from carrying over treasury every year. This is written in the financial guidelines, but if there's a little carryover for recruiting and t-shirts for the next year, that's fine. But we don't like to see that. It should be over $750. Next slide. The most important thing for 4-H clubs and finances is that you're doing an audit every year, and that's the treasurer's record. A copy of the treasurer's record book goes to the association, and somebody other than the treasurer and the club leader and the organizational leader takes a look at the finances of the club. They fill out a simple audit form that goes to the association every year. The educator looks it over and it's kept on file. That's done on a yearly basis at least. If you want to do it quarterly, that's fine. I know in my own club, it's a little bit of work to get it done every year, but it does get done once a year. A club that doesn't follow these procedures can get the association in trouble. If an auditor comes in and looks at your books and they find a big missing pot of money, that can fall back on the association, and it can jeopardize your tax-exempt status, which is individual to the association and very valuable to the work we do. And as I said, clubs' activities are activities of the association. Affiliates' activities they come back on them, but that's not to say that the association doesn't bear some liability. In some cases, we've had problems where a volunteer would sign a contract for a venue or an event or a place to hold meetings. And in all cases, volunteers are not to sign contracts on behalf of the association. Contracts are only to be signed by the board president or the executive director of the association, who bear the responsibility of and the liability for signing on behalf of the association.
So the other thing we want to mention is that it's a good idea to have some kind of crisis action plan for the work that you do with young people, especially if you're talking about overnight trips, but anything in general. This is just an example of last year's plan that we used for career explorations, but we will be updating it, especially with Sarah's work with SHINE, which is an acronym that they've been using around planning and preparing for emergencies. And SHINE means stop, help, investigate, notify, and evaluate. And the webinar about that was yesterday, so you can check out the recording if you want to learn more about that. But it's really important to have a plan in place, to talk through the scenarios and to figure out what's going to happen, how you're going to handle common challenges that could occur, such as a medical emergency, a natural disaster, any of those kinds of things. So this is something that should be updated on a regular basis for your individual association. It's something we look at before and after every event, all of those kinds of things. There's a lot of great examples out there in the system, like we've used Tompkins County's version as a model in a lot of places. So I'm sure you could get some great examples from colleagues too, but just make sure it's part of your planning process. And that is all of the major policies we wanted to touch on today. What kinds of questions do you have? And we can unmute people too if you wanted to talk.
Linda's asking, where is the sample you just shared, Alexa?
Okay, so that has not been posted yet for this year, Linda, because we're in the process of revising it. So as soon as it is, we'll post it up on the Career Explorations website. That's really just a screenshot of the first page of last year's form. The other thing is part of this plan is a phone tree, which includes cell phone numbers. So that part does not get posted. I don't want to share cell phone numbers over the internet. The SHINE example is posted on the professional development website, part of the staff site, which will take me a minute to get to. Thank you, Linda. Other questions? Here.
If you go into risk management, that's one way to get there. Yep.
I have fun. Every time I come here, I go to places a different way, and it still gets me where I need to go.
Lots of ways to get to things.
Yeah.
So then look at the crisis management and CCE, the 166, course 166.
No, I'm not. It's okay. I'm going to share it now.
And we don't have to watch her struggle. You did it very, very clearly, though. Very efficiently.
Here we go. We got a good question going on. Okay, so this is the webinar that was yesterday, the crisis management in CCE, that has the SHINE model on it, which is under organizational development, professional development, and one of the courses.
And I downloaded the recording. It has to get transferred to a YouTube link, and then I'll put that on that same page. We can also link to the sample crisis action plan back to the New York State 4-H risk management page.
Perfect. All right, now we have another question. If we want to change our volunteer enrollment forms to include the code of conduct and the volunteer agreement on the enrollment form itself, do we need PWO approval of the form before we implement it?
So we actually have Jamie Ferris on the line, who's also willing to talk about the form review question.
Oh, great.
That needs to be reviewed by his office. So if we unmute him, he's willing to help us out.
Thank you, Jamie. You are unmuted.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good morning, Jamie.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Alexa and Adam for putting on this presentation. You guys doing a great job. This is very helpful. And I certainly don't want to overshadow their work here. They've done a great job. I just wanted to clarify in the form, I would err on the side of sending us the form just for a quick review. It doesn't take us very long to look through it, make sure we're fine, and you haven't inadvertently edited something you shouldn't have from the state forms. And also, we can just get a quick look at what you may be doing on the local level and give you some advice on that basis. So that was all I wanted to clarify when it comes to that. And I can certainly answer questions in the realm of what's been presented here. I'm happy to do that, but I don't want to get far afield on anything else.
Thank you, Jamie. Well, the last question was about combining forms. The volunteer enrollment form, the code of conduct, volunteer agreement, and the enrollment form. Is that the same answer you just said? Should somebody send you?
Yeah, they can just send us. We can take a look at it. It's okay to combine them. We just want to see the format, the formatting to make sure something doesn't interfere with one form or another, or something hasn't been changed, and the language is where we want to have it. That's all.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We do that regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always bombarding you with emails.
Certainly not a problem.
All right. So Linda's question is the volunteer agreement for those who have references, background checks, and a volunteer application?
And I can speak to that, and Jamie, if you want to add, feel free. But Linda, yes, that goes back to the volunteer categories, back to the basics of volunteer involvement, the screening plan. So we've used the volunteer agreement for those enrolled volunteers. So we're thinking the long term, the higher risk. The casual volunteers, we try to keep the process a little bit more simple. The enrollment's a little more simple, but most of our volunteers are enrolled anyways. So yes, they're signing off on the volunteer agreement. Remember that all volunteers, though, are background checked, unless they're just a one-day volunteer, 1 day per year. Anything to add to that, Jamie? Or Adam and Alexa?
Nope, you covered it well.
If you follow the volunteer involvement policy, you're covered, basically. It's exhaustive.
Jamie, I'm so glad you called in today. This other question, I would really appreciate your advice too. So there's one about medical history intake as part of enrollment. So we ask those questions for overnight trips as part of the permission slip. Is that something that should be part of the enrollment process or only for overnight?
Typically only for the overnight situation. I think you guys have a pretty good packet, and it covers. We've reviewed that. So it's just, yeah, the medical history is, we use the medical history for our tree workshops, which is good. It doesn't hurt to have the information if they want to present it. Specifically, I think you're asking the base questions. Do we have allergy situations? That sort of scenario. The overnight, of course, deals with any potential medication, that sort of situation. But I think, try to use your judgment and always give us a call. Should we be taking it at this information, at this level? Certainly doesn't hurt to have that information.
Great, thank you.
And I just want to jump into the issue of allergy. This is sort of becoming it has been a hot button issue, but you just want to make sure that leaders are aware if there's allergy. That should be revealed. I think should be a question if there's an allergy, especially if somebody's involving an EpiPen or that sort of situation. And if they're doing field trips, the leaders on that basis should be aware where are those EpiPens, who has them, in case something happens, and shouldn't be afraid to use them. That's the second question I want to say. That, you know, you're virtually impossible to hurt anybody with an EpiPen, or give it, incorrectly. You're not going to hurt them by providing that. So always err on the caution of that with an EpiPen, but that's the best example I have there.
Thank you. And Teresa, we do have our standardized language for the medical part as part of the permission slip. So the permission slip itself has media release, it has medical information, has evaluation permissions. We tried to streamline that for you so it's all in one spot. So you can start with that language, and if you have other questions, you know, touch base with Jamie and PW Wood.
Great questions. Keep them coming in. We've got Alexa and Adam and Jamie on the line. And actually, for those of you who haven't, if this might be your first webinar or you're very new to Cornell Cooperative Extension or New York State 4-H, Jamie Ferris is president of the PW Wood and Son Incorporated, our risk management, the Association Risk Management Office. So Jamie's been offering some risk management webinars with us and has for several years now, and we're happy to have him join in.
Yeah.
So Teresa's asking about suggested questions on the medical history. I think allergies is probably the biggest one. I think Jamie would agree.
All right. Other thoughts or questions from anybody? Thank you all for coming and for participating very well and asking great questions. If there's something that you think about later, Kim is going to be posting these resources online for us on the CC administration page, sharing the slides for you and our contact information. So you can always email Adam or I or Jamie or Kim or anybody if you have questions later on, and we can help you with that.
Do you want to plug the Managing the Risks of Summer? Where we
You bet I do. One of our favorite webinars of the year is Managing the Risks of Summer. That's, I think, all of you who had actually registered for this webinar got the notice about the 3. The access is the same. This is Tuesday the 25th, I think, May 25th at 9:30, same time. Registration forms the same. So many of you have signed up for multiple webinars, and we appreciate that. So it'll be in the Training Center of WebEx, same passcode, capital C, little e, 123. You'll get another email just before that, and we'll have a updated slide handout on the course page, and under Organizational Development Staff page, we'll also post an updated recording after that webinar. So the materials will be there. There's quite a few changes that have that are coming.
But the animals, things change every year, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. We still have chickens this year. That's always nice.
Bart has a question about casual, short-term volunteers.
Yeah, so I was trying to type fast for you, Barb, but
it's good for everyone to hear the answer anyways.
Yeah, it depends on what the particular role of that volunteer is, the time commitment, along with all of the other concerns. So if it's somebody who's going to be working with your program for more than a day, then they definitely need to be background checked. If it's less than, working with youth and more than a day. If it's less than a day, then they may not. So I put the link in here for Kim's volunteer involvement policy, so you can read through some of that, and then please jump in and say anything else you won't need to say about that.
No, that's great. If you're right on, Alexa. I think there does sometimes we have some confusion because in the past, before I guess 2012, we had those 2 categories, the casual and the enrolled, and the casuals weren't required to be background checked unless they worked, well, I don't think they were required to be background checked at all. Since the end of 2012, 2013, that requirement is for all volunteers. That includes Master Gardener volunteers, any casual, even if it's a 3-day program where somebody's coming in to help with a camp, and even if they're supervised. So remember, those casual volunteers are always supervised. We still need to have those background checked. And there's a lot of challenges there. You get to know the volunteers. Even after a couple days, they're pretty comfortable with them. Even though in a regular club setting or the fair, these people are looked at as authority figures. There might be some opportunities, and we know that 99% of our volunteers are fantastic and can be trusted along with youth, but we don't want those opportunities to come about without us knowing that there's some kind of background. So definitely background all of your volunteers, and if you're not able to do that, then you need to cut down on the number of volunteers you have in your program. But yes, background check all volunteers unless it's a 1-day, 1-year program, and that's basically to facilitate if somebody shows up for an event to help out, want to get to know the organization.
Special guest speaker or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that.
Great question. Thank you. Good to bring that up.
And Kim has a ton of great resources about volunteer involvement on her page, so make sure you check that out too. Every 3?
Every 3 years, a minimum of every 3 years, and that, Cassie, thanks for that question also. So background checks should be repeated every 3 years. We do have a few webinars on that also, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that on the 25th. But the minimum is every 3 years, and that's if you want to be more restrictive in your association, you can talk about that there. But that's our state guideline.
And in 4-H Online, you can record the date of when you background checked your volunteers, and you can run a report every year of the background checks. You can filter them, and it'll spit you out a quick report of who's due for a background check. If you'd like me to show you how to do that, I'm happy to do that at any time.
Thanks, Adam. And then a form letter for people who we decline as volunteers. Janet, there is an example that's part of the volunteer involvement policy and procedures, which you can get to from that link that's in the chat too. So you can check that out. Good question. I never know where these conversations go. It's part of the fun.
Yep, yep. We're here as a resource for you. And we're open to your comments too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. And like I said, if you want to follow up with us individually afterwards, feel free to do that. Have a good morning.
Thanks so much, Jamie Ferris, and thanks Adam Davis and Alexa Maille. We're just great to have everybody together and just make those opportunities to clarify things and to take your questions. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Good job, guys.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. Take care, everybody.
Bye.